Hello, and welcome back, most illustrious members of the Detail, guys, gals, and NPals, monarchs of all or no genders. I am your host D, also known as MtF DOOM on Marvel Snap, and today, for real, we are going to talk about 5 things that you can do to improve your chances, or at least the fun you have, hitting infinite. I hope that you enjoy. Just before we get into it, I want to thank you all for showing up, for watching, and for supporting the trans friend D, your buddy D. You'll get a shout out at the end if you're someone who has done some kind of cool stuff on this channel, but I want to shout out everyone who watches. I appreciate you all. We just broke 300 subscribers. That's a big mark for me. I know it's not much to some people, but it's quite a lot to me. It feels really, really cool that the channel is still growing all these months later. We've been at it for 9 months now, and it's been a really wild ride, and I can't wait to see where it goes. So today we're going to talk about I made this video. We're going over here. I made this video once before, somewhat sarcastically, I'll say. 5 ways to not hit infinite was the video that I made, because at the time I did not hit infinite, and I had tried really hard, and I had fallen short, and I felt kind of bad about it, but I wanted to sort of revel in it together. All of us who didn't hit infinite, we can all sort of take maybe some lessons away from our struggle, right? And now, having hit infinite with a lot of regularity and exceeding it by quite a lot pretty often, which is really cool, I actually think I can bring to task some useful information that's actually relevant and pertinent that might help you get to infinite if that is a goal that you strive for. Now, I do also want to make it clear that is not the only goal of the game. In fact, I'm just going to spoil it. Number 1 is genuinely to have fun, and that's not me being a shonen protagonist about it. That really should be the number 1 thing you're doing here, and it is going to make it easier, but we're going to get to that when we get to it. If the thing that you want to do is hit infinite, here are some things that I've learned from my journey. So number 1 is to play both relevant and unexpected tech. And I know that seems counterintuitive, like, if it's relevant, how is it unexpected? But the thing is, a lot of people, myself included, pretty often find these kind of relevant tech cards quaint. Like I forgo playing Magneto in decks where I could play Magneto. I forgo playing Juggernaut in almost every deck except for maybe Cerebro 3 or maybe Surfer. But Juggernaut is a perfectly relevant card. If you just Juggernaut your opponent's play out of their Wong lane, it's just as good as a Cosmo most of the time. Most people expect Shang and Enchantress, which is why they're not here. It doesn't mean they're not good cards, but in general, your opponent will be able, if you are playing near infinite, and this probably changes the lower that you go in ranks. I don't necessarily know that that's true, but as you start getting near infinite and people are pretty conscious of what you're doing, they will be able to read a snap as a Shang. They'll be able to kind of understand their positioning against Shang, and if you can still win. We have some really cool highlights in the Discord, really hilarious ones of people getting Shanged, but they still won because their opponent was just so excited to Shang them that they didn't actually math it out, and they couldn't win the other 2 lanes. So it's like, okay, yeah, you Shanged me, but you didn't deploy any power anywhere else, buddy. So it's not that that's a bad card. It's that pretty often we're all on, you and your opponent are on the same Yomi lair surrounding. And I have a video on Yomi lairs if you need to know what that is. But basically, you and your opponent are of the same mind in that moment. You both kind of know what's going on and can make relevant, interactive decisions around that. Being retreating, snapping, moving, defending. You know, if your opponent has one of these tech cards, Armor or Cosmo, right? So be it. The point is, Armor and Cosmo don't see that much play, at least where I'm at. I don't know if that's different. Again, I assume if you're still like maybe early in Pool 3, they're more relevant. But right now, I pointed this out in a recent video, Carnage and Venom are two of the most played cards, which means that armor is really good. There's no getting around it. I was playing the weekend missions, and I had to play negative, and I had to play Dakin. I haven't finished my Dakin ones yet. And I ended up having to cut armor for Dakin in a certain deck, and I wasn't happy about it, and I lost way more games. Armor, the amount of 1 cube wins you have, because your opponent just plays Deadpool, and then turn 2, they play out Nova, and you just play armor, and they're like, oh, I can't win. And you just get 1 cube as if you had played out a whole game, and you just get to move on to your next game is really, really good. That's what we call a good thing. And Cosmo wouldn't necessarily do that. Cosmo does other things. The other thing that I want to say is that, you know, those are still ones that people sometimes see coming. Magneto, Legion, if you have access to Legion, he's one of the I think one of the better tech cards that have come out because he's relevant in his stats and in his effect. He's one of the only ways you can get cards into Sanctum if you're not a deck that can already do that. You know, the ability to almost always one of the locations will be at least good for you, if not great for you. The ability to say, no, they're all that location, thank you, is really, really good. Things like Valk are just criminally underutilized. I understand the power level of this card is a little lower. Just on her own, a 5/3, it's sometimes hard to win. She has the Shang problem, I'll say. She requires so much that sometimes you don't win through a Valk, right? Like you got it, you did it, you Valked your opponent, but it's like, okay, well, that's great, but I've still lost the game. So this one can be a, you know, it's not always relevant. Listen, they're not all always relevant. But you're looking for cards that are relevant for the deck you're playing, for the meta you're in, and which are not the answers that everyone sees, right? Like Killmonger's another example of Shang, right? It's a good card. It fits a lot of decks, and a lot of people play it because it's good for their deck, even if it weren't a tech card. Therefore, when you are in a situation where you and your opponent are sitting across from each other, and one of you is like, well, if I have a Killmonger, I just win. You're both kind of on the same page. You're both kind of like, yeah, if they have Killmonger, they just win. So they can make a more informed decision about that. So we're looking for relevant and unexpected. And I know that can be a hard line to draw, and it can be a hard line to realize and understand, and it changes per meta. I wish I had a better answer for you. I don't. One final note is that something I've noticed about Cosmo, that because I've been playing way more Cosmo in my decks recently, and I think it's correct. I think Cosmo is just really good. And I think that the way you want to look at Cosmo, one, yeah, it shuts down Wong. Always good, always relevant to shut down Wong. But secondarily, you should look at it as a close the door after you, right? You do your thing. Cosmo is really, really good, I found, in decks that are good into like TVA or Kiln, right? The deck that I played and featured recently that a bunch of people watched, thank you, by the way, all my new viewers, that video is doing really well, which is really fucking cool to me, is that, you know, decks that can get out early that would theoretically win a lot of the time on TVA, like the Forge deck, right? Cosmo is really good for sort of quote-unquote shutting the door behind you. You got to do your cool thing. You got to go Forge into Brood. You have 15 power there. You go Cosmo. You have 18 power there. How many decks can beat 18 power without on reveals? Not that many. Angela can sometimes do it, but there are genuinely not that many decks that can beat 18 power without using an on reveal effect, really, you know? And so when you quantify it in that way, it gets better. Now, Cosmo is always going to be relevant because on reveal effects are always going to exist, but I think that he's probably criminally underplayed. And even in a deck where you have a lot of on reveals yourself, the ability to play around it is always useful. In the exact same way that, like, you can play around your own Quake or Scarlet Witch or Legion, right? The fact that it's technically affecting both players is irrelevant when you know you have it and you get to pick how it gets utilized. All right, next up, and this goes along with the relevant and unexpected tech. Oh, there's not one right now. Oh, okay. Weekend missions. Play to the hot locations, the weekend missions, and the weekly reset missions. So when Big in Japan comes out, when week 2 starts, you get a bunch of missions all at once. Everyone gets the same ones. Right now it's upgrade a card. You obviously cannot, you can't play around upgrade a card, but play 6-cost cards. Play ongoings, right? Play destroy cards. That was one, I think, last season, right? Because it was, we're probably gonna, maybe it was even last week, I don't remember. Everyone gets the same missions. I'm pretty sure it was like that for a while. And so you can be pretty sure as soon as Big in Japan Chapter 3 launches, if one of those says destroy cards, there's going to be people playing more destroy decks than average. The weekend missions were play Dakin and play Mr. Negative. I only realized I was up to rank 116. I had to win 10 or 15 or whatever with Mr. Negative. I lost 5 ranks. Now, it doesn't matter because I'm infinite. Like, it's all made up and the ranks don't matter and whatever. But, like, you know, it is relevant for what we're talking about here. My best days, my best climbs of the previous seasons were the day where it was in Elysium was the hot location, because I was playing bounce, and therefore I got way more game actions than any of my opponents, right? Other than the bounce mirror. Other decks like Dino would have been relevant there, right? Just having more cards in hand because you're more likely to be able to play all your cards out. The ability to just play more cards is relevant. And then the other one was the Kamar Taj, the day that Kamar Taj was a hot location. The ability to play negative and then Cosmo Kamar Taj, and you don't play negative into Taj, right? But you always have the ability to either Cosmo the Taj or to play your on reveals, but they're worth way more because they've been negatived. That was my strongest climb of that season. And so those both speak to the power, and again, really early in my career, playing this game, like my best days were always days where there was a hot location that I jumped on early, and you want to stay slightly ahead of the curve. So as soon as it launches, you play your Yomi Lair 0 deck. You just play the strongest deck into that location, and when you start to see other decks like yours, you play Yomi Lair 1 and you start to slightly counter the deck that you built first. And if you can master that, you can get a lot of cubes in a really short amount of time, and it's your best one-day climbs are going to be those types of days. So day 1 of the week for weekly missions, the weekend missions, and the hot locations, which there isn't one right now, so I can't show you. Number 3, don't play distracted. That one, I did feature this on my last video as well. It was the reverse. It was I do play distracted. I've gotten better about that. I've gotten better about just putting on like video game music on my second monitor instead of like more Marvel Snap content. or honestly, it's usually old school RuneScape flipping videos. It's just is. I don't know. I don't even play that much old school RuneScape. I just watch a lot of flipping videos. I'm a fucking addict. It's a good thing I didn't get into like Wall Street bets. I'd have lost everything. So don't play distracted. It's kind of self-explanatory. If you're playing right now, pause the video and finish your game, you fucking degenerate, and then come back when you're done. You just play worse. I hate to admit it even to myself. I think of myself as someone who can multitask, but like there's no getting around it. Just even having something going on your second monitor is distracting. It just is. You cannot deny it, and you play worse because of it. So just don't play distracted. The fourth one, and this goes along with don't play distracted, because it's a way for you to keep yourself honest with whether or not you're distracted, is keep track of your stats in maybe not excruciating detail, but like quite a lot of detail. Again, to go with my best ever climb day, which was the Elysium bounce, I kept track of every game I played, what my matchup was, so what my opponent was playing, the outcome in cubes, and notes on whether or not I got like lucky, unlucky, whatever, right? Like, my opponent had a 1 in 4 to win, but you know, the Magneto pulled the wrong card. Like the Magneto if it had pulled this other card, they would have won. Or if Gambit would have hit this way, I would have won, or whatever. And keeping track of how those rolls went and whether or not it was worth it, and keeping track of my matchups, and then also adjusting my floor and ceiling. And if you haven't seen that video, I have a video on how to learn how to snap, right? And I use what I call the floor and ceiling method, and I will try to remember to link it down below, but that is not a guarantee. And adjusting my floor and ceiling accordingly. And this helps you not play distracted, because as soon as you finish a game, you pull up your document and you add a new line to it, and you add all this information, and then you go back into your game and you play the next one, and you keep it in mind, and it's constant in front of your mind, and that's all really cool. But it doesn't stop you. You can still play distracted. And then the final one is have fun. I already spoiled it. I don't know why I'm pretending like I didn't. But I do. I really mean it. Like, even if what you want to do is hit infinite, which is like, you know, it's a good cause. Like it is fun to win. I'm not going to pretend it isn't fun to win. It has been more fun and more easy when I was playing decks like this. When I was playing decks that like this. Like this deck, it's really easy to win with. Not because this deck is completely overpowered. It's perfectly fine. It's a good deck. But because, like, it's funny as shit to yell John Cena when you play out 8 cards on the last turn, and one of them's a hit monkey for 14, and your bishop gets plus 12. Like, it's really fun. It's really fun. There's no way around it. It just is things that are just fun. And it is way easier. It's way easier to stay motivated, right? Because again, like if you're striving to hit infinite, and therefore you are looking at it as a chore, and that's fine. Like, there's no wrong way to play games. If you're having fun, even if it's a slog, even if it's like difficult, some things that are fun are also difficult. That is all fine. It's going to be easier if it is also fun in addition to being difficult. Don't let it just be a hard thing that you must do to prove yourself. Let it also be a fun thing that you do because it is fun, because it is a game and we want to have fun. Now, all that being said, there is a final note, and this one's kind of unfortunate. It's that one of the better ways to hit infinite is to have already hit infinite, because there's a huge time investment involved. And like, you know, like I said, this month it took me just under 150 games to go from 70 to 100. And 150 games isn't a ton of games. But like, that was also on the way low end of the amount of games I've had to play to get to infinite for a season. That was on the way low end. And at 150, even if they only take 3 minutes a piece, that's 450 minutes. That's 12, 24. Well, that's like 8 hours. That's like 8 hours. I'm pretty sure. Oh, I'm gonna sound really dumb if that's way off. I think it's close enough for government work. So the unfortunate hidden sixth tip is that once you hit infinite, kind of gets easier to retain it. And I wish that weren't the case. Like, Like, on the one hand, it's nice. Like, it's a boon to be able to kind of just, you know, recycle this rank. And on another hand, I wish that the 30 rank drop happened from your true rank. Like, if, you know, the month that I hit rank 130, I wish I just got to skip the stupid grind from 70 to 100, but I didn't. But on the third and final hand, it sucks feeling like you have so much work to do because, like, oh, well, I grinded out rank 60. Now I'm at rank 30 and I have to grind all these fucking ranks to try to hit infinite. But hang in there, especially if you're having fun. If you're not, don't hang in there. Fucking book it. Get out of here. Don't even come. Don't worry about it. But if you are having fun, hang in there. And if you do hit infinite, fucking let me be the first to congratulate you. And it'll be easier next month, man. Thank you so much. If you've made it this far, I appreciate you quite a lot. A like, a comment, and a subscription go a long way, as always. And a very special thank you to the following people: The Tiny Ruby, A Frog in a Tent, Clips, Crayon Eater, Cole D, Polyhaze, Sartorius, Demisi, KD, Diston Nelson, and Matt Backey. This channel is brought to you by all those people. They help me with all kinds of stuff. Some of them are Patreons, some of them are script editors, some of them have made music or thumbnails or my avatar. One of them donated the microphone. One of them taught me how to optimize, do like search engine optimization stuff. He's also a local rapper, really cool guy. And you know, it wouldn't be possible without all of them. It takes a village. It takes a village to be the super villain, you know? That's the phrase, right? So thank you all so much. I hope that you have a great day, and I will see you all very soon.